So you were speaking to the need for balance in the paradoxical pairs. It also seems, and you talk a little bit about balance between the two key components of the denominator, eligibility and suitability. How do we find that right balance? How do we find the right mix?
Jim, it goes back to the actual activities involved in the job. That's really going to determine what kind of balance that you have. Both eligibility and suitability are important. For instance, if you have a doctor, it takes a lot of skill and experience, a lot of training. I think I want a doctor who has a very, very high eligibility quotient, right? At the same time, suitability is a factor. Some of the research that I point out in the book has found that doctors who have a poor bedside manners get sued more often. They may be very eligible and they may actually be very good, but they're going to get sued more often. So you want to have a high degree of eligibility, some degree of suitability, some degree of interpersonal traits that are going to support your performance. Sales is a good example because it's primarily a set of activities that involve suitability. How you relate to people, how you influence, all those intrinsic qualities that enable you to respond to an individual and get a yes. Eligibility can, however, be very significant depending upon how technical the sale is. If I am selling a product that is not hard to learn, is easy to demonstrate, it's a product sale, I probably don't have to have a lot of eligibility. You can probably train me in that. You're looking for suitability. On the other hand, if it's a highly technical job, I have to communicate something that has a good degree of technical application. You're probably going to want somebody who has some experience in that, who can particularly be convincing in it. If it's a service, you may particularly want somebody who has the experience so that they have the credibility. So you'll strike the balance on really how much skill, experience, and education do you need to be impactful in the buying decision. One thing to think about in balance is we don't all have to be balanced in eligibility and suitability to be effective. Sales is another good example. Let's just say I have great suitability in sales. I really can close a sale, I can relate to you in a great way, and I'm not really that technical, but the customer is going to have a lot of technical questions. I'll just bring the technical resource with me, that person who has the high eligibility. Together, we can create the balance we need to be effective in that situation. I often call that the Batman and Robin situation, and I name that because there was a guy who was a brilliant sales guy, still is a brilliant sales guy. And he had sold products, and he recognized that the future was in service sales. And he recognized that sales engineers knew how to talk that talk and walk that walk, and he didn't. But he really knew how to relate to a customer. So he independently went in and said to a sales engineer who he thought really would show up at a client very well, "Why don't you join me?" And they were just knocking the cover off the ball, and people started calling him Batman and Robin. So I often think of the balance as you can do it yourself and have great balance, or you can have Batman and Robin. It's better to have it where you can have the balance yourself, but if you can't, make sure that Robin's along for the ride.